Green. He's the founder of the Northwest Cary Community Connection. It's the group that, if everyone that's on the group, can you raise your hand? There's 12 of us here tonight, and Nate will tell you about it, but I just want to recognize the people that are involved, okay?
Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm excited that you're here. Again, my name is Nate Green, and just to give a brief background on who we are, we're just a group of volunteer, like-minded citizens who really wanted to advocate for projects in our area. And I moved here about 3 years ago. We found that we all wanted the same things. We wanted Cary, we wanted Wayne County, we wanted the state to pay attention to things in our area. Our area is so quickly growing. And so in the last couple of years, a lot of us have started to engage with the town, engage with the county. We realized there's actually a lot of unique structures here in North Carolina and unique ways to engage. Things like the fact that our school systems are set up through the county, the fact that our roads are mostly in Cary managed by the state, and then the fact that parks, it's all at the city level. And so people I was talking to in their advocacy work were really just spending a lot of time spinning their wheels, talking to the wrong people about, talking to Cary people about schools, talking to county people about parks, and it's very interestingly weaved, but our group really got together to, collect our voices together, advocate for the same projects, divide and conquer, so to speak, but also we exist to help people like you who are interested in engaging with our government, engaging and advocating for projects in our area, to connect with our government and do that in the best ways possible. Our tone has always been collaborative, our tone has always been positive, and with that, since we've got together about a little more than a year ago, we've actually been able to see some real positive progress and real positive change for our area, and we feel like we've been a strong advocate for that. It all started with the Western Cary informational meeting. Did any of you guys get the chance to come to that? It was here a few months ago in May. Great. It was a great turnout. I'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's a brief history of who we are. We meet monthly. If you're interested in coming out and taking more of an active role in helping us advocate and connect and advocate for our area, we'd love to have you come out. Right now we meet monthly in the Cary Park Clubhouse. I try to bring beers when I can. And you know, it's a happy, easy-go-lucky. You know, we do ask that if you do start to come, we'd like to have you come on a regular basis and find an area that you're passionate about and something that we can get behind you and help support you in as well. So with that, we'd love to have you come out. There's a spot on our website, northwestcary.org, where you can actually just fill in your information. It emails me. Please forgive me. I've been terrible about getting back to people immediately with emails, but please do, and we will get back to you. We'd love to connect with you and engage. So thank you for showing up tonight. Briefly, I just wanted to give an update since the project, so you can go to the next slide. So first, and Reggie, why don't you just cycle through so we get all of the road projects up there. There's been a number of things that have happened. So in May, we talked about a number of the things the town of Cary had planned. Everything wasn't finalized because the budget hadn't been voted in yet. But since the budget was voted in, a number of things happened, especially in our area. So first, the Carpenter Fire Station Road widening. That's actually a contract that's been out to bid. Companies are actually bidding on the design and planning of that project. That's going to be a widening from the Cameron Pond neighborhood all the way east to NC 55. It's an $8 or $9 million project, but that train is on the tracks. So once that's designed, then it's going to go out to bid for construction. So that process is about 2 to 3 years, so it's going to be a little bit before it's complete, but that train is on the tracks. So that was a huge accomplishment in this year's budget. Next is the Green Level Church Road widening. This was not even on our radar. This was not one of the top projects that we were advocating for, but the town of Cary heard a lot about Green Level Church, specifically between McCormick Parkway and O'Kelly Chapel Road. There's actually a big development going in there, and that developer is paying for a lot of that widening. And with that, there's only a little bits that need to be filled in by the town. So the town actually put on this year's budget to finish that road widening. So that should be widened to 4 lanes. And then there's been a lot of attention paid to that intersection where Green Level Church hits O'Kelly Chapel Road. With the new school there's been a lot of increased traffic there, and close attention paid to eventual turn lanes and things that are needed. So that is on the town's radar. They're hearing us, and hopefully, I think they have some special projects planned to get that accelerated. Next is the Morrisville Parkway Extension Interchange. So the town of Cary is just, with lots of work from the NCDOT, finalizing some work so that Morrisville Parkway can finally go through all the way from Greenlevel Church across to NC 55. There will be an interchange on 540 there, and that continues to chug along. Should be done probably in 2019 or so. Then Carpenter Fire Station Road and the intersection with NC 55, there's going to be improvements there. So they've got that on board. That's going to be in 2019 or 2020. That should all be finished. That's going to include a grade separated crossing. So right now, with the train tracks, Carpenter Fire Station Road and Morrisville Carpenter Road both cross the train. And what they're going to do away with those crossings, making a grade separated crossing. So it's a multi-year project, but that's getting underway. At Morrisville Parkway and Carpenter Upchurch, where there's an awkward left turn, they're going to put in the light, and that's been out to bid this year. So that's just been out to bid. I think this last month. So, and then O'Kelly Chapel Road is actually finally sounds like we're making progress on widening that road as well. So from Greenlevel Church to NC 55, there's a developer putting in a huge apartment complex on the south edge of O'Kelly Chapel Road. And so he's actually offered to widen his side of the road, and with that, it looks like the town is very interested in finishing the widening, making it a 4-lane road all the way through from Yates Shore, which is the Chatham County line, all the way through Parkside Town Commons. And eventually, I didn't include it on here, but in the near term, the next year or two, they're planning to continue that road further east to connect over to Morrisville over there. So lots of stuff. I think, you know, when I listed all these things out, I just thought to myself, wow, these next couple of years are going to be very busy in our neck of the woods. There's going to be a lot of construction codes, but it's all going to be worth it. So this is, I think, your advocacy, our advocacy, and that meeting was huge in, again, having a strong presence there. You can go to the next slide. So Parks and Greenways update. It looks like, so just today, it's a 395-page bid the town of Cary put out, but the Panther Creek Greenway and Mills Park Phase 2 went out for bid today. So that means that for construction, so the next year and a half, year and a half, it should be finished. So once that's finished, we should have a greenway from Cameron Pond all the way over to where it stops, which is just east of Greenlevel Church Road. So theoretically, if you live in that area, your kids will be able to walk to school from the Cameron Pond area, so kind of where we are, all the way over to Mills Park Elementary and Mills Park Middles without crossing the street. So that'll be great. There's another section of the Panther Creek Greenway that's planned from Cary Park Lake to Yates Store Road. That's a critical section that will eventually connect the Panther Creek Greenway all the way over to the American Tobacco Trail. It was a final candidate for submission for a particular type of grant called the LAPP grant. It did not make it this year, but they're going to consider it next year for funding. So hopefully, our vision is to get that Panther Creek Greenway all the way from the American Tobacco Trail, all the way out here, and hopefully, eventually under 55 and over to Carpenter Park. And then there's a section of the Panther Creek Greenway that's being constructed separately that's going to connect from Cameron Pond all the way over here. That's going to be with the request for qualifications that went out, where they're planning, designing both Morris Branch Park, which is at the corner of McCrimmon Parkway and Greenlevel Church Road, Cameron Pond Park, which is at on Carpenter Fire Station Road, just down the street here, and Highcroft Drive, and this last portion of the Panther Creek Greenway. So they've already hired a firm for the planning and designing that park. Expect public meetings in the next couple of months from that firm to really input what we want. Those meetings are critical, so keep an eye out for those. We'll publicize those when they come out. So if you want a water park, if you want a splash pad, if you want covered play areas, that's the time to really say that that's what we want in our park. And they listen and they build what we want. And lastly, this year it's still in the budget to put a disc golf course for you disc golf fans out there over the new Hope Trailhead of the American Tobacco Trail. Go to the next slide. And for as far as facilities go, we're actually inquiring. We were really excited because in this year's budget, there's money set aside to start the planning of Mills Park Community Center, which is going to go in that big green space, well, where Mills Park Phase 2 is. It's going to be a huge hub for activity in the future. There was a RFP or a request for proposals to do that planning, but then it got pulled, and we've reached out to the town. We haven't heard back why. If you're interested in that, when we find out, let us know. I can fill you in on the details when we get them. But that's at least a $16 or $17 million project, so it's definitely going to have to be funded by a park bond in the future. all signs right now are pointing to a park bond probably being released in 2018 to help fund a lot of these projects, so we would hope for your support on that. Park bonds have always uniformly passed in Cary, but especially if a lot of projects are out here, we're going to need your help in making sure, because remember, all of Cary votes for that, so we hope that that will pass if it comes to fruition. One exciting thing is that the town, because there's no community center out where we are, they're actually looking at leasing temporary space in the Amberley retail area, I'm told, that they actually want to plan parks programs for kids, for adults. And so stay tuned for information on that. We'd love to advertise that. And the more stuff that goes on out here without a community center, I think the bigger the pressure builds for them to actually come through and build that community center. So we definitely support that. Next slide. So the community meeting, thank you again for coming. It was very well attended. This place was standing room only. The town came out. It was a really big emphasis to our leaders that there's lots of people here that care, that are interested in our in the town coming out to engage with us. And our plan is to repeat that at least once a year. But interestingly, a lot of the questions that came up out of that, everyone was excited for the projects, but all the questions were focused on schools and school growth. And that's why we created tonight. Lindsay Mahaffey graciously agreed to come out and speak with us and engage with us on schools and school growth. So she's graciously agreed to come out here and engage with us. So one quick reminder before Lindsay comes up is we actually have an election coming up, October 10th. As a part of our Northwest Cary Community Connection, we are not formally endorsing any political candidates, but we are endorsing the political process, so please vote. And most of you live in District A, so you're going to have to vote for either Jennifer Robinson, Radha Ravi Varma, or Majid Mohajir. I'm sure you've seen all the signs out there now. And an at-large bid, Ed Yerha, Jeff Duke, or George McDowell. These are all great candidates. Of course, I'm happy to tell you my political preferences offline when I don't have the mic. But I will refrain from doing so when I do have the mic. So early voting actually started today. You can actually go down to Herbien Community Center today, tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday. So please consider voting. Go to their websites, look up the candidates. I would love for District A to outshine the rest of the districts in voting power and the number of votes we get. It really says a lot about our area, the more people we get to actually vote. So please vote, encourage your friends to vote, make an informed choice. Regular voting is going to be at your usual polling station if you can't make it during the early voting period, and that's on October 10th. And lastly, I think that's all I have. So I won't take any more of your time, and I'll hand it over to you, Lindsay.
There's something about a person that you've helped grow and create and learn about the world being out there that just produces so much more anxiety than when you were that 7-year-old. So it really, you know, as a parent, as someone who had been an educator, I've taught for a number of years in kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. Here, there, and everywhere. It's just a very different experience. And so I had a friend of mine say, well, aren't you nervous when, you know, enrollment comes around and you get the mama bears and the papa bears? And like, A, I've been a teacher for a while. B, I've been that mama bear. And C, I once spent a Christmas working the phone line at Mattel and Fisher Price. I can handle this. So my name's Lindsay Mahaffey. I am the representative for this area for the Wake County Board of Education. We are a county-wide school system, which is very different from a lot of places. Way back when, all the way back up until 1975, 76, Wake County used to be Wake County Schools, Raleigh City Schools, and what we found were that there were a lot of inequities between the two school systems, and that integration from the Brown v. Board of Education system, Supreme Court decision just wasn't happening. And so the state legislature actually put into action in order for Wake County schools to be as you see them today. That allowed us to, and when I say us, I mean Wake County, I wasn't here. That allowed Wake County schools to have a magnet program. We hear a lot about magnet schools, and we hear that they're promoted a lot. The purpose of the magnet program is to take a school that is in a lower socioeconomic area and bring other students in. So the grant allows us, it's from the federal government, it allows us to do some programming. In Cary, we have Kingswood Montessori, which also has a STEM focus. There's also Farmington Woods that has the IB program at the elementary level. And then there's many, many, many in the city of Raleigh, because we know, and this goes back to a report from 1960 and beyond, that when there are high concentrations of poverty, there's a lot of barriers for kids to get through. Am I going to eat? Sometimes where am I going to sleep? Although we know students experience homelessness in many different levels. And so it allows those barriers to break down. It allows those concentrations of poverty to I hate to say the word dissipate, but I'm not thinking of the correct word, so that teachers can focus on kids at all levels and also give those kids that are there that need that extra attention, the extra attention. Sorry, I'm an educator, so this is what I kind of geek out on. So we have our magnet programs, and that's kind of how those came about. And now in Wake County, we have 186 schools, over 875 square miles. And we have schools that go everywhere. You know, as we mentioned, the magnet schools, we have year-round schools, we have Crossroads Flex, which is in Cary, which is for kids who want to go to high school, but a traditional high school doesn't work for them, so it's more blended learning. There's a huge online component, and it really caters to kids who just either have to work, or kids that are equestrians or musicians or athletes. And it's a really neat program that's just different. It's still the same, it's still high school, but it's a different high school experience, because a comprehensive high school is not for every student. We just started our SCORE Academy this year, which is for those kids that are at risk of dropping out or have dropped out, that are a couple points credit short of getting a high school diploma, so that we can bring them in. Again, it's a blended learning component, so they can get their high school diploma, because we know that that is a factor on more career successes. And we also have now a pre-K program. I personally would love to see it expand, but we are focusing now on special education students and Title I students. And sometimes those are two separate programs, and sometimes it's a blended program. It depends on the school, but I know some of you here have elementary school kids, so you will see a pre-K program in those schools. Most of them are half-day for the 3-year-olds, and then 4-year-olds generally get a full day. Kingswood does have a tuition-based pre-K program, and that is, you will have to check with the school about that. But they do a blended pre-K kindergarten class as part of their Montessori program. We started a new motto this year. It's behind me. What starts here changes everything. Because we know, even as grown adults, we have those memories from school. We have, even if it wasn't our favorite place, we have those memories that either where we made our first friend, or we found something that really sparked for us, whether it was athletics or the arts, math or science or foreign language, it changes everything. You know, I grew up in a very small town in upstate New York, and I learned French because I had to, and ended up being a French major in college and then teaching overseas in the French public school system for a year before I realized that I much prefer our system over here. Can I get? So we have a strategic plan, and this was created by community input, teacher input, student input from all over the county, hoping that each and every child will be able to reach his or her full potential. And for me, you know, not just that the kids will graduate, but that they'll reach their full potential. That tells me if I have a student who struggles, they will be able to find their best self, even if that is understanding that they have a struggle. Or for kids that are, you know, on the AIG spectrum, that they'll be able to be challenged and find ways to grow. And our goal is by 2020, which really isn't that far away, we'll graduate at least 95% of its students ready for productive citizenship, as well as a higher education or a career. So recognizing that college isn't for anyone, for everyone, but we want them to be productive. We want them to go out and find their place in this world, or make their own place in this world. Right now, we are at a district average of 88%. And we have, I mentioned the magnet schools. We do have early colleges where you can earn college credit while you're in high school, tuition free. And a few of our early colleges actually had 100% graduation rates this year. And a lot of our schools had over 95% graduation rates this year. So we're on our way. Can I get the next slide? So I mentioned the strategic plan. I was able to find about 5 pamphlets to hand out to you, so I put this slide up here to point out, when you go to our website, which I know many, if not all of you have, there's that orange button in the corner that says Our Strategic Plan. When you find yourself, thank you. When you find yourself there, click on it. It'll open up the strategic plan. You can learn more about it. We talk a lot about the 4 C's of collaboration, creativity, communication, and I always drop the 4th one. It rotates, so don't worry. But just recognizing that in school, it's not just about learning what's necessary to pass the course or to pass the test or to get a good EOG score. It's about those skills that we use every day in our lives, at work, in our communities, problem solving. The reason that you're all in this room right now, we all have to collaborate. Even if we work freelance, there has to be some collaboration. Even if you, as I've done, even if you're just home with your kids, you've got to collaborate and communicate with them. Otherwise, they will run all over you, or at least mine will. Next. So, I grew up in upstate New York. I taught overseas. I was in Washington State for a while. And in New York and Washington, we had small districts. That was your district. Your tax rate was set by the school board, and you voted on the tax rate to increase for your school tax, which was attached to your property tax usually. North Carolina has a very different system in that unless you grew up here or in Virginia, no other place is like it. The school board can set policy. We hire the superintendent. We can set a budget, but we don't have taxing authority. So we get, And North Carolina's Constitution says that it will provide a sound basic education for all students in North Carolina, which is amazing. So we get about 60% of our funding from the state, and 30% of our budget comes from the county commissioners. So every year, about May, June, you start hearing about the school boards asking for money, the county says this. That's a natural friction. That just happens because the county commissioners have one source of money where they have to pay for libraries, they have to pay for the sheriff, and all of the many other things that they are in charge of. And here comes the school board asking for more money. Which, of course, it's all for worthy things. But we do our best job to advocate for what we have, and the county has to weigh all of those options. So if in May or June you're getting antsy or bored or you feel like things aren't going well, you can write to your county commissioner and tell them to support the school budget. And then the rest of our budget comes from the federal government. That is mostly funding for the ID Act, so students who are on IEPs, Title I funding, and so on and so forth. So just federal programs which are very, very strict in their funding. Our operating budget looks quite large. We have 163,000 students in Wake County Public Schools. And that is not all of the children that are in Wake County. We have home schools, we have private schools, we have charter schools. And a charter school, it uses public funding. So when we get our money from the state and the county, we have to look at how many children are in public charters and take off that per pupil expenditure and give it to the charter school for that student. So, so we have to take that into consideration when we hear that the county commissioners have given us X amount. That's the amount of money that we get plus the amount that, including the amount that we have to send off with our charter students. So our operating budget is quite big, and our operating budget gets voted on every year. We do have an external audit that comes every November, December, that gets done. For us, it's our money, sorry, not my money, only as a taxpayer. But it's the community's funding. We need to make sure that we're handling it responsibly. And so 92% of it goes directly to the schools, whether that is personnel or facilities. We have operation support, academic advancement, which would be professional development, and things along those lines. 1% goes to the superintendent's office and our communications department, chiefs of staff and strategic planning, and 1% for technology services. So, and that's, do any of you have students at a BYOD school? Yeah, so we have BYOD schools that go hand in hand. We also have a 3-to-1 initiative for technology. So 3 students to 1 device, generally a laptop. We found that paired with the BYOD, that was the best way to fund it because we know computers cost money, and they break or they get obsolete. Next slide. The other part of our funding comes from the capital improvement budget, and this gets voted on by taxpayers as part of a bond measure. Our last capital improvement budget plan started in 2013. Next year, you should see that on your ballot. If This is where we build new schools from. This is where we renovate existing schools from. So we are in a, if not the fastest growing part of the county, a fastest growing part of the county, definitely top 3. We need more schools to fit more people. So these are all the schools that were funded. You can see in this area we have Hortons Creek, White Oak, Green Level High School, which is currently being used as a swing space for Apex High. Apex High is no more. It is a flattened piece of dirt. It's no longer a pile. Apex High was going to be renovated. It was only going to occupy a swing space for 1 year, and we did a structural survey, and it was far enough along that it just had to come down. So we pushed the opening of Green Level back by 1 year so that Apex High could get torn down and rebuilt. So that is ongoing. So Green Level will open in 2019. Our high schools generally open with a freshman and sophomore class so that we know that our juniors and seniors have been invested in that area, in their school for so long that most of them would probably want to stay where they've been at with their peer group. So in order to have a fully operational, comprehensive high school that offers all of the same programming as the school the students left, we found that it's better to just have a freshman and sophomore class as we open high schools. So those are all the things that have come under the operating budget, or the capital improvement budget. And if you could go to the next slide, we have worked really hard with our commissioners to have what we call a multi-year enrollment plan, or a 7-year plan, where we look and we see what we would like to be built. We work with NC State, we work with a company called Numerics to look at growth patterns and to best predict what areas will need schools. 2024 is kind of far out, so you see a lot of those will have MXX. We know we're going to need to build a middle school. We're just not sure where. HXX high school, ALP alternative learning program, PXX elementary school. You can see where the swing spaces are. Garner High School moved to the new South Garner High, which will be opening next year. Garner High was torn down, rebuilt. They are moving back to Garner High, and then South Garner High will open next year. So it's been kind of a circle. Yes?
M16 is obviously something that we're all looking at. That looks like that is not going to open till 19 or 20.
So it's the 2019-20 school year. So middle schools and high schools take about 2 years to build. So Alston Ridge Middle will be opening in the fall of 2019.
Okay, so that would be
2 years from now.
not in the too far distant, but they haven't started construction.
Right, they're getting there.
They're getting there.
They're getting there.
Is there anything that you could tell us about that, how that's going to be districted?
No, because I honestly don't know.
No clue at all what they're going to do.
Right now, the assumption from the student assignment staff is that it will open on traditional calendar, which you don't want different calendars on the same campus. So again, these are assumptions, these are not final. Things change. And this is what student assignment is planning. The board may decide to go a different direction because we can. But that's what we're looking at, and we're not sure where it's going to pull from at this time. We can guess. I'm going to guess it's going to pull from Mills Park Middle a little bit because they're a little crowded over there.
My plea is please don't send me to East Cary. And that's what's happening right now. We're all being bused all the way down there. And my hope is that in 2019, we at least get to go to M16.
Would you email me about that? I'll give you
I
my
will
email
certainly,
address after that.
yeah.
Okay.
Is information, your email back there?
No, but I can give it to you after this.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you can see all of the other places that are coming. Fuquay High, we just did groundbreaking on Willow Spring High School. Fuquay will occupy it for 2 years, and then it will become Willow Spring High School. I'm ready. So this is where we have to build. The stars are sites that we've already acquired. The circles are target areas where we know we will need to build based on growth patterns. Does anybody have some land in Northwest Cary for an elementary, a middle, or a high school, preferably all three? Let me know.
If you want to pay the price, that's the problem.
Well, yeah,
We have a whole neighborhood.
we take the government rate.
I know, that's okay.
That would be a huge tax hike. I don't think we would go for that. Can I get the next? So the thing that has taken all the oxygen up in the boardroom is the K-3 class size issue. So in 2016, the state legislature said, you will have class sizes of no more than for kindergarten through 3rd grade. Now, I as a teacher can tell you, it's much nicer to have a smaller class than a larger class. I would also tell you that from my own teaching experience and study, the 18 in kindergarten, 16 in 1st grade, and 17 in 2nd and 3rd, I don't know where those numbers came from. I'm not sure what we're supposed to do with the additional kindergartners when they become 1st graders. That means we'll need to have more 1st grade classrooms. So we've really been looking at this from a facility standpoint. And when I say we've been looking at this from a facility standpoint, we haven't even broached looking at it from an HR recruitment standpoint yet. But we know we will need to have more teachers to fill these new classrooms. So, so before we were told class sizes at 21, capped at 21 with plus or minus 3 flexibility. So my girls who are in 2nd and 1st grade had kindergarten classes of about 22, 24. They didn't go into kindergarten knowing how to read, they came out of kindergarten knowing how to read. And one of them doesn't stop. 4th grade and higher have never had a class size cap. There's not a class size limit. So this year, we are in kind of a cool down or warm up period to those new class size levels that'll come next year. So we're at 20 with a little flexibility across the board for kindergarten through 3rd grade. And you'll see those 4th and 5th grade classes still don't have a cap. But as we have to create new classrooms in a finite space, we're finding that we're having to put more 4th and 5th graders in one classroom. Now, 4th and 5th graders, they grow, and they're the biggest kids in the school. And the classrooms don't grow with the children. So those classrooms can look pretty cramped, and we're hearing that some schools have more than 29 kids in a 4th and 5th grade. How many? 30, yeah. So it's we're looking at a law that has what I believe to be the best intentions. We know that kindergarten, first and second and third grade are where those fundamentals really get solidified. So if we can have more resources and more teacher, smaller class sizes, that would be great. But we're looking at higher classes for 4th and 5th grade. We need more classrooms, which means we're looking at converting a lot of our spaces, like music on a cart, art on a cart. I know that in this area you may not be a stranger to those concepts, but to have a designated space, and as a former foreign language teacher who's taught both on a cart, from a binder, and in a classroom, it drastically changes your teaching. If I can have everything laid out before the kids come to me in my classroom, if they can have a designated space of, oh, this is where I do this, for some reason, they could speak to me in French or Spanish in the classroom, but as soon as they walked through that door and we got in the hallway, they had left it all behind. So those are the things that we're looking at. We do have the building program that we're hopeful that it'll pass and we can build new schools. So as a county, we're looking at short-term solutions in order to fix, to work with the smaller class sizes. But I know as a parent, short-term for the life of a school district might be my child's elementary career. Next. So these are just some of the things that we're looking at. We have 27, you can go to the next one, we kind of went over this. We have 27 schools that need interim options that would require board action. Last night was our board meeting. We had to cap schools. We had to waive board policy to place caps on schools. Normally that comes in December. We had to move that up so that we can control transfers and we can start preparing for next year. Because even though we are preparing for this, if we didn't start doing it now, it would be so much more drastic. Can we get the next slide, please? The other thing that we're looking at is buses. This is not the transit. I thought I had moved the other slide up. That's okay. Can you go to the next one? Can you go next? Yeah. So I talked about caps. We'll go back to buses. So these are the schools, the elementary schools that we've had that have been capped. And you can see the school names. So we have Cedar Fork and Mills Park would be the ones from this area. And you can see the current cap number. So Mills Park has had a cap of 942 students. And we have 56 students that are in the Mills Park base that are capped out currently. And we could keep Mills Park at its current cap number. But when you look at Cedar Fork, its cap number is 1,044 students, but because of the new class size rule, we had to lower the capacity of the school. So we had to lower that cap by quite a few seats to 887. And of course, we know that as parents, when we go to a school that we assume our child will go to, and we're told by the data manager, however nice he or she is, that no, your kid can't go to this school, they have to go to the overflow school until a seat opens up for your child. That's hard. That's hard. Can you go to the next slide, please? So these are the schools that will be getting, they are now capped for the rest of this school year and going into the next school year. So Carpenter now has a cap, and you can see we're over that cap capacity. And so can we go back to the buses? So the other issue that we have is kind of an HR thing, is buses. Up until September of this year, if you wanted to be a Wake County school bus driver, you could. And you would get paid $12.55 an hour. You'd have a 6-hour split shift, so 3 hours and then a 4-hour break and then 3 more hours, and you'd be driving our most precious cargo around. And it would, if you wanted to get to $15 an hour, it would take you 13 years. Thanks to Representative Nelson Dollar and the Teamsters Union, who helped bring Wake County Public Schools on board, we were able to talk to the state because bus drivers are state-funded positions, and we were able to bring that up through a budget action at the legislature to $13.11 an hour, and then change our scale so that bus drivers can make $15 an hour if they stay on for us for 7 years. So it's still probably we're hoping to recruit more bus drivers. So we have about 734 routes, and we had 730 drivers as of August. So if you know anyone that is looking for a career change, or our bus drivers do get health insurance benefits through Wayne County Public Schools. We find that a lot of the folks that are signing on are have finished with their career but are not quite ready to fully retire. And so we have, 760 buses that run daily bus routes, 181 activity buses, 90 spare buses, and 98 parked buses. Buses that are fully functioning that we just don't have drivers for. So what that does, next slide please. What that does is it means that 44 of our schools have shared runs. Does anyone here have a student that's on a shared run? Does anyone want to explain what that is?
I guess it's the bus will drop some of the kids off from the school and then come back and get more kids from the same school.
Right.
So they have 2 routes from the same bus.
Yeah. So you have kids either waiting at the school in the morning because they were dropped off earlier, while the bus goes and picks up more kids.
Yeah, so we're 5 minutes from the school, but our kids don't get home till 4:30.
Because they're waiting for
Because
the
they're
bus
waiting
to
for the
come
bus to
back
come back.
and pick, yeah. So we have 205 shared runs. Yes?
I just wanted to add to that, I have a kid in high school, and so when he was on the early route, the double route, he had to be in the bus at 6:30 in the morning, and he didn't get home until 3:15, and he lived out of 1 mile that way.
Right.
It was a Panther Creek.
Yeah.
So, or I had to take him to Carl, which is.
Right.
accident.
Not actually convenient. Yeah.
The road safety.
Big Magnet Fair, which has generally been at Southeast Raleigh High School, one of our magnet high schools, will be on November 4th. Followed by that will be the early college application period. So we have the Young Women's Leadership Academy, the Young Men's Leadership Academy, Wake STEM Early College, and so and Crossroads Flex. And they're earlier because there is a written application piece to that, and so it's not like when you apply for a transfer, you just fill out a couple of boxes on the website, and then the student actually has to write and share why they'd like to attend that school. So it kind of gets them ready for college. I will say our Young Men's and Young Women's Leadership Academy, they do have uniforms, so if you don't like doing laundry, then maybe that's an incentive. And we also have Vernon Malone and the Northwest College and Career Academy as well. In December, we will approve our enrollment plan that is going on, Draft 1. Many of you are familiar with that, whether it's from this year or years previous. It is, and I've said this before, as we're going through the drafts, I consider it to be a conversation. Whether you write into the web forum where myself, student assignment staff, and my colleagues on the board can see And I'm reading it every day. I know my colleagues are, I know the student assignment staff is, so don't feel like when you've put things on there, it goes into a black hole and then nobody does anything. We really do look at it. And, you know, even if you're happy with the enrollment plan, say you're happy with it. And if you don't like it, say you don't like it. Please give us a reason why so we can understand better, but let us know. Because we do have another draft coming, and this Friday in Holly Grove Middle School in Holly Springs off of Avon Ferry Road, we will have a meeting, and there's more on that later. We get our assignment strips January 4th. Kindergarten enrollment begins. No matter where you would like your child to go to school, enroll at your base school. Magnet and year-round application school period opens January 10th. We are realizing that our year-rounds have more capacity. We enroll more students. We're not realizing that. We've known it, but we want to bring that out. So the year-round application period will be in January. If you are in a year-round base and you'd like to go to traditional, that transfer period will be during the regular transfer time, whether it's back to base or an request for school transfer, that's February 20th. That's also the time of our hardship transfer. I don't know anyone, I know maybe a couple people in this room have had to do the hardship transfer before. In previous years, that was May 1st that the hardship transfer period started. As a parent that's gone through that, not knowing for that amount of time where your kid is going to go to school is difficult and only adds to the frustration. So we have moved that timeline up, which means that if you are appealing your hardship transfer, you still get a hardship transfer and you get a no, you can appeal that and you get to speak to someone in the student assignment office face-to-face and let them know your reasons and why you have a hardship. In this past year and in years past, we've had those go until July. That's not okay. So we've moved up that transfer period. So even though it says through August, really, we should be done by the end of the school year. I say should because we don't know for sure. We haven't done this before. And then the first day of school is July 9th because our year-round schools will start then. Next slide. So I mentioned the enrollment plan. We know there are a lot of things going on. You can go to wcpss.net/enrollment plan if you want to look at it. If you want to put in your address and see if anything has changed for you. If you want to access that community feedback forum, wcpss.net/enrollment plan, or just go to our website and scroll down, you'll see, enrollment proposal. You'll see the enrollment proposal there and you can click on it. These are the dates that we're looking at. I've put up at the top, community meeting on draft 1 will be at Holly Grove Middle School at 6:30 this Friday. And next one. And as always, we're really not hiding. And you don't have to go to Dillard Drive to see us unless you want to. Our board meetings, you can see my colleague Ms. Kushner right there, and our work sessions are always streamed on YouTube. So whether you're busy and you just want to have it on in the background, but you know something might be coming up regarding something that may impact your family, or you're curious, or you just feel like watching a government meeting, you can just put that on your laptop or your iPad and watch it, and we don't hear you if you scream at the computer. So I believe that's it. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. I know there might be a few.
Yeah, just couple things about the questions. if you could please talk in a mic, because we are live streaming this, so we want people to hear, and if you could keep your questions in the general nature. If you have something specific to ask Lindsay, maybe you could follow with an individual email. And so, I'd like to open it up for questions. We are going to try to end around 8:15, so we have a good 15 minutes of Q&A time left. So who would like to ask first?
Can you speak to us about the grandfathering proposal and what the board is leaning towards?
Yeah, so we are looking at that in our policy committee. And we have, it's kind of been the other piece of our class size piece that's been going on. In the past, you could grandfather if you were in 4th or 5th grade. So when we open a new school, we try to fill that school so that it's healthy and robust, and we can offer as much programming as we have as the schools that students have left. So what we're looking at is having to do a compromise for what we've done in the past. So siblings could also, it would be 4th and 5th graders, and their siblings could grandfather, and then the sibling would stay at the previous school for until they finished at that school. And again, that was with parent-provided transportation. So if you were bus dependent, it really wasn't an option. And so initially, when it was brought to the board, it was said that 5th graders only, just for the rest of the year. And as a parent, I kind of didn't sit right with me, but I also knew that the reasons why that was being brought, because of the health of the school, wanting that school to be full, wanting the school that was having issues with overcrowding to no longer have overcrowding issues. So we asked, and knowing as the carpool parent that I am, that to have 2 students at 2 different schools in elementary is difficult, to say the least, yeah. So where we are right now, and we're still having this conversation, but the last place we landed is 5th graders, so terminating grade, 8th graders from middle school, and sibling for 1 year. So it would have to be a family decision on what to do, but recognizing that having 2 different students at 2 different schools, especially when they're at the same school level, is tough. But that's where we've landed. We've not made it an official policy yet. We're still looking into what that looks like for high school, and it's an ongoing conversation.
Who's next?
Do you have any advice about what we can do with the legislature about this class size nonsense? I mean, I've just read that there's been nothing done tonight, so, I mean, do you have any advice? I mean, I've tweeted, I've written letters, I've called, I've done all the regular things, but is there any?
I would say, keep writing, keep sharing. It's those personal stories of how this impacts your school, impacts your family, that are going to be the most powerful. As a school system, we can share facts and numbers as much as the listen, but really hearing from parents. I know the Wake PTA Council and many PTAs in schools have been very active in advocacy for this. So the Julie Von Hafen, who's the chair of the Wake PTA Council, was at my board advisory meeting on Monday, and they have on their website a flyer that you can download to give you the facts and also show you who you can contact. So the PTAs have been phenomenal in their advocacy in speaking towards that. So, and thank you for writing and sharing. There is a budget amendment that's proposed on the legislature for. I believe it came from the House, having us staying at our current class sizes, which is better than what we're looking at for next year. So we'll see. We'll see.
Okay, so I have a question specific to Horton Creek Elementary School.
Okay.
So like most of us moms, we have our kids going to Horton Creek Elementary School, which is a traditional school, and we really like that school a lot. So I just have a question, like, do you think it will continue to be traditional school for upcoming years?
Yeah, so we had a lot of proposed options and I keep saying fixes or ways to kind of put a Band-Aid on the short term, and again, short term being, a couple of years, solutions for this class size issue. And one of the things that we had to look into was calendar changes. So I think that's where that got started, but for Hortons Creek, we're looking at just possibly closing the school to transfers in order to monitor who comes into the school, but we're not considering a calendar change.
So, with the new middle school coming for Alston Ridge Middle, will Horton Creek feed into that school, or will it still be going to Mills Park?
I don't have a crystal ball, so I can only speak with like 80% certainty on this. But it's my understanding that Hortons Creek will most likely feed into Alston Ridge. And as I said before, the plan right now is that Alston Ridge will be on traditional calendar. Alston Ridge Middle, and then the assumption would be that Alston Ridge Elementary would go from year-round to traditional, but again, that's not we won't know until the enrollment plan comes out next August, September, and then we go through this all over again. So it really, I don't know for sure.
So if you're already in Mills Park, again, the grandfathering thing.
Right. Yeah.
So feeding into that as well. So I have kids at Alston Ridge, which I know that there's always contention with traditional year-round and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Given the building constraints and everything else, I know Alston Ridge is a little smaller this year because of Hortons Creek, but if they go traditional, presumably lots more kids need to exit that school, and where would they go?
And that's why I said with 80% certainty, because we will have a community conversation about that during next year's enrollment plan for sure, because we don't know, and we do have, it'll depend on the class size piece. And we do.
I don't necessarily care. I actually really like year-round. At the end of the day, I don't necessarily care. I don't like it all the way across Cary though, because this year-round school has gone traditional, and now there's no space for those kids right in that proximity to go to a school right there.
And that's my fear too.
Yeah.
So we are having those conversations, and unfortunately, that won't, I wish we could put those things on so that we could tell for certain that this is what's going to happen, but it really is a year-to-year thing, and we have to wait until Alston Ridge Middle is ready to open to have that big conversation.
With year-round, which again, I know makes some people very mad, but
Why is year-round more popular as well?
Well, it depends on where you are.
Okay.
It depends on where you are.
But there's,
Yeah.
I learned Alston Ridge, and there's a ton of people who are very happy there, and who wanted to stay there even though Hortons Creek were opening, even though there were people who wanted to go to Hortons Creek. So, I think part of it is the calendar mismatch.
Right.
By having kids in middle and elementary on different calendars.
And
If all the schools up in the Northwest went all year round, there would be a similar calendar, but people would still not be happy. So I get that there's complications.
Yeah.
But,
Welcome to my job.
yeah.
I love it.
I'm going to ask a quick question as a dad. I have a daughter who's in kindergarten at Mills Park, and I was also following very closely this last year the reassignment of some Cary Park families to Hortons Creek. And I very intently watched your very first school board meeting where you brought up for a vote to, again, try and reassign those families back to Mills Park and use Carpenter Fire Station Road as a dividing line for that. And I wanted to say I really appreciate that you did that. And again, I know the vote didn't go our way. I was watching it very closely because I'm in the Cameron Pond neighborhood, which is on the other side of 540. And last year's in last year's reassignment plan, while they were discussing that, I saw in a presentation there's an eventual plan that's not in stone and not, for sure yet, but that my area might be reassigned to Carpenter Elementary School instead of Mills Park. And one of the projects I shared tonight was the Panther Creek Greenway that's going to be completed. And today was actually also Walk to School Day. So I've been so excited.
Connecting the dots here.
So I'm so excited. I'm hoping once that Greenway gets built in 2019 to walk my daughter to school on Walk to School Day. But in 2019, at least the current planning behind the scenes is that we're going to be reassigned to Carpenter Elementary School, in which case we would have to cross NC 55 and we won't be able to walk to school.
That doesn't sound like fun, no.
So I just wanted to put in a thank you about Cary Park, B, an early pitch to maybe keep some of us zoned to Mills Park. And an interesting observation, and I know you guys have access to this data. I know that year there were 204 kindergartners, I think, for 168 spots at Mills Park. But this year, after the reassignments, I think there was only 124 for 154 spots. So the class sizes are much smaller now already. So it seems like the decongestion is happening, and it may take some time to kind of go through. But I was excited about that, and that gave me hope that Mills Park may not be capped in the future. So with all that said, I apologize for the long question, everybody.
That's okay. Background and history is good. I spoke for quite some time.
Is there, for schools that are currently capped in our area, do you foresee in the future that we won't be playing this game of reassignment and that our schools may not be capped anytime soon?
Well, given that there's only 18 acres of land that's undeveloped left in Cary, possibly. I mean, no one wants to cap a school, and I know some folks here were at the school board meeting tonight, or last night, having a capped school is inefficient. It helps with the students that are at the school, but then we have to transport to the overflow school, so then we have transportation inefficiencies, and it's confusing for students and it's confusing for parents as well. And my feeling is with the enrollment proposal, we have really good folks that are great at GIS mapping, but they don't necessarily live in the community. And so when I came and spoke with the Cary Park families, we walked and saw around, we walked down from North Cary Park across the lake, and out of the blue, it wasn't planned, or at least that's what they told me. They ran into a neighbor and they had a conversation. And so, it's that kind of community interaction that is why we get the feedback, because we're not there. What looks great on Google Maps or on a GIS mapping system is not what the community is about. And so we have to also keep that in mind as we do
Sure.
this enrollment proposal.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
I don't know.
Sure.
I promise you there's not a vault in the office where things are locked away that says like enrollment plan 2020, like do not break,
Sure.
It's not, everything's done in pencil. You will see changes between draft 1 and draft 2.
Mhm.
We're constantly having those conversations.
Okay.
So last year, when Hortons Creek was just opening, a lot of families were redistricted from Alston Ridge. There were some families that wanted to stay on the year-round calendar, but from what I've heard is that uniformly, unless they were grandfathered, they were denied. Do you think they would get the same answer this year if they tried to transfer, or because of the capping, would they possibly get a different answer?
I can't speak with certainty, but it doesn't hurt to try. Every year is different. We are learning. This is year 4 of the enrollment plan. We're learning that when we look at a school and if we look at 2 schools and we see how many students are that live in the base area that are attending base, it's not always the highest number, but what we find is when we open a new school, that we have a higher number of base students, or students that live in the base area that want to attend their base school. So we're adjusting our numbers to go with that. And for me, I think it's a huge thing for the student assignment office to admit to that. I mean, you know, we're people, we've got numbers and we work with what we have. But I would say, you know, if they want to look back and go back to Alston Ridge, that transfer period, I think it was February 10th, opens. Put it in there. We've asked for a box where families can share their story so that it's not just ticking a box and kind of seeming inhuman, although it can sometimes seem like a tough process. We want to make sure that people have a chance to share their story and why they want to change. So I would say yes, but I'm not sure. I would love to say 100% sure, but I can't.
Next question of you.
I'm going to switch to the high school level and
yeah.
overcrowding in the high school and the impact it has on students.
Yes.
To give you an example, Panther Creek just had their most recent homecoming, and they only had room for 27% of the student body to attend. They sold out of tickets, and I'm listening to all these new elementary schools and the crowding in the elementary, and I'm only seeing the high schools get worse. And trust me, my daughters will be out by the time any of yours get to high school, but it really needs to be addressed because what's concerning me, I grew up in upstate in Vermont, and I knew my classmates. I mean, these kids go to school and the focus, even they were just talking about the principals being rated on how well their students did, or their teachers' grades, or the pay scale. We're trying to make these well-rounded citizens. Stop treating these kids like widgets. Well, you know what, you're in this, you know, when you started college, nobody plucked you from your college and moved you to another one. Don't move these kids. This is their home. They haven't changed. It really has a dramatic effect. I've seen it with kids at Briar Creek who couldn't get the ride to Panther Creek High School when the busing stopped. You know, you build an allegiance, you build a friendship. I'm just saying, please consider the students, not just the upset parents. Students are really impacted by all of this. And there needs to be a facility that can handle all the kids at Green Hope and all the kids at Panther Creek High School so they can have a community gathering. There's nowhere for them in Western Wake County. In fact, they have to go to the Raleigh Convention Center for their graduations. I mean, that's a big consideration. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I was there for many of those graduations, and it's very different from what I grew up with, and it's.
They have to they practice like an auctioneer because they have to name the students so quickly.
They're big classes, yeah.
Are there any, we're at 8:15, are there any remaining questions? I think we have time, do we have time for 2 more, Lindsay, or?
I mean, my kids are in bed, so, yeah.
Any other questions?
This is just related to the specials and how that might change for next year.
Yeah.
Is each school going to have the flexibility to change it, you know, the way they want, or how is that going to work?
So the way that teachers get, that schools get teachers is by what we call average daily membership.
How do they know the density development?
However, if you are a traditional school or you're on the 10th day of school, whatever your enrollment is, that's your, those are the number of kids that are in your school according to DPI. Now we know that in Wake County we have 69 people a day moving into the county. And we have a kindergarten class born every day at Big Wake, or maybe 2 kindergarten classes, depending on the class size. So the way that our teachers are funded is through allotments. So if you have, and you forgive me for not remembering the number, but for example, let's say for every 15 students, you get a teacher from the state. Because the state pays the majority of a teacher's salary, and we're very lucky that in Wake County that our commissioners and our county has a generous supplement on top of that. which makes us a big deal in the state of North Carolina because we have some of the highest paid teachers in the state. If for every 15 kids you get one teacher, and then let's say you have 3 classes of 20 kids each. So that's one teacher for each of those classes. And then the 5 extra students from the class give you an additional teacher, and that is maybe your art teacher or your music teacher or your PE teacher. Your librarian is paid for through a separate funding cost. But that's how we get our teachers. And so our allotments under the class, our allotments are not changing under the new class sizes, which is why if our allotments don't change, we may not have the funding for extra programming. And that's where we hear we need to fund this so we can have specials. So it will be different for every school because every school's membership is unique. And for our year-round schools, that 10-day mark is the 10th day of track 4. So however many students are in the school on the 10th day of track 4, that's your enrollment, and that's how things are set. So I know my children's school just lost a teacher because they didn't meet projected enrollment. So we had to take 1 3rd grade class and break it up. That's hard. Conversely, my daughter's kindergarten class, we walked in on Meet the Teacher night and it said TBD. So I thought that was shocking, and it turned out to be done in a very, in my opinion, the best way it could have possibly been handled. But those are the things that we deal with, and it's hard because it's our children.
Any other questions?
Do you have a question? One more.
Lindsay, thank you for coming out tonight. Just one question about green level high. I know it's a temporary apex. Is there any preliminary discussion about where those assignment zones will be coming from? Again, I think the idea of kind of not trying to break up communities and where do you draw that line, but any thoughts on that?
And this kind of piggybacks on what you were speaking to earlier. Panther Creek is bursting at the seams, and its overflow has been to Green Hope. And a lot of that overflow has caused Green Hope to burst at the seams. And so the early assumptions will be that a majority of green level will come from the Panther Creek base. Again, that's with 70%, 60% certainty. But we do only open high schools with freshmen and sophomores. So that the juniors and seniors who have built those relationships, who have worked at that school, who have taken such pride in that school, can continue to stay there. And we consider them not to be transfer students. So I'm going to use Apex Friendship as an example. Apex Friendship took from both Holly Springs High School and Apex High. And so they opened with a freshman and sophomore class. Those sophomores are now seniors. This is Apex Friendship's first senior class. But it allowed the school to build the programming so that it had the similar programming from the schools that the students came from, and it allowed those students who, when Apex Friendship opened, were juniors and seniors to stay with their communities at Holly Springs and at Apex so that they could continue. And so that's kind of how we look at high schools. But adding on to a high school means finding more land on that space. So unfortunately, because of the condition of Apex High, green level opening was pushed back a year. But they're making sure that they leave it in great shape for their new freshman and sophomore class in 2019.
Last question, Lindsay. I know we said that was the last question, but then I had one burning question, and that was this. Can you just briefly touch on the reason for this growth as all of these new developments that happen in the town of Cary, they get approved by our town council, they come in, they build hundreds of new homes, and it's a different entity than you guys are. And can you just briefly touch on how you work with municipalities, in particular the town of Cary, to make sure that we are not continuing to worsen the situation when these new developments are made? How much intergovernmental collaboration is there, and can we do anything to improve that? Because if you could drive up and down Green Level Church Road,
it's
just
different every time.
Yeah. So can you just briefly touch on that? How you guys work with the town to?
Most of our conversations are generally with staff to staff, because they tend to be the ones that are there working, for lack of a better term, in the trenches with the numbers, with the data, day in and day out. And the knowledge that our staff has, as well as I'm sure that the town of Cary staff, about the area and the community is just so much more than we can really get into at the elected level. And what I would say is, I know before, I believe it was before Mills Park was built, the town of Cary actually put lot size restrictions and zoning restrictions on how large or how small a lot could be for a single family home in this area until there was a school. So, I mean, there is some conversation, but really the growth is dependent on the municipalities, and so it's, not just the electeds, but there's planning boards and zoning committees that also do a fair amount of the legwork before it even comes to the vote for the town council. So it's a matter of doing what you're doing now, which is staying informed and trying to stay on top of things and trying to get answers, because sometimes if we're not aware, we all of a sudden go, oh, wait, where did that come from? So that would be my biggest suggestion, call to action, I guess.
One more question, Lindsay.
Yeah, you did. I mean, thank you so much for changing all the slides for me. So
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You mentioned about
Definitely
69
the
people.
last question, everyone.
69 folks moving in every day to Wake County.
Yeah.
Thinking 15 years from now, is Wake County Public Schools looking at preserving some land for, like, the Friendship High School, middle and elementary?
Yeah. So we do land bank, and I think for a while back in the 80s and 90s, maybe the growth just kind of got away. We had bond measures that failed in 92 and 99, and it was after that 1999 bond measure that we saw year-round schools have bases. Year-rounds used to be application only. And we had the choice plan, which is the final year. This year's 5th grade is the final year of the students who are grandfathered under the choice plan. And so we're trying to be really cognizant of making sure that we have land for our schools. Apex Friendship, that is a full elementary, middle, and high school campus. It currently has only a high school. It'll open a middle school next year. We just purchased some land in the Fuquay Marina area, and our amazing real estate lawyer who works in our facilities team said, well, I know we only needed land for a middle school, but this one has enough for a middle and an elementary. So we are doing that, but things are tight up here. So we have to work with that, so.
No. Quick.
On that note, I've heard some rumblings about the possibility of exploring, could we put a Wake County school in Chatham County?
We have heard that rumor as well. We can only put Wake County schools in Wake County. So unless Chatham County wants to give some land to Wake County,
Who do we need to talk to about that?
I believe the Chatham County Commissioners, but I'm not advocating, that's, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to thank you all for showing up tonight and showing your interest in our community, and for Lindsay for coming to talk about
Thank you, guys.
education. If you have other topics that are on your mind that you want to hear about, part of the role of Northwest Cary Community Connection is to connect our area of town with town and Wake County officials. So please let us know what else you're interested in. And I also wanted just to thank Crosspoint Church for hosting this event. They've been really supportive of us and use their space. Please remember to vote October 10th. And also on your way out, if you haven't seen the new beautiful Northwest Cary YMCA, please go check it out. You can also register tonight if you're interested. So thanks so much again to everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.